Hey everybody, uh, back again. Can't help myself today. I have some ideas that I just have to share. I'm gonna work through a conversation that I had with my dad just a moment ago. Um, Share some ideas that are fresh on my mind, and really, I want to focus on the concept that people just aren't where they ought to be. Society is not functioning, and the way that it is capable of, and that's the biggest thing to me. So just gonna give you some context. The conversation I was having with my dad, right? We're just talking about education, life, future paths, like looking at careers and things like that for myself. And I wanted to, I'm going through all these different ideas, and I've thought about right now. I have an engineering degree, um, and compared to like a lot of my skill sets and a lot of my knowledge growing up, like the things that I got, that I did really well at and I got good at. Um, Engineering made sense like as a first step type of thing, but it really isn't like a skill set that I think emphasizes who I am, and it doesn't really make the most of what I'm capable of. So I actually, after getting my engineering degree, I got a job in the legal counsel field. Um, so I work as an advisor in regulatory compliance. It's a interdisciplinary thing. So basically, it's engineering plus law or times law. It's like they have to both function cohesively. Um, so they, in order to do that, um, really effectively, you have to understand law. So like coming from an engineering background, it doesn't really make sense to do it fully unless you have a law education or that you're well versed in law. And so, I've thought about getting a JD, which is a Juris Doctorate. Um, it's essentially what you need in order to practice law and become an attorney. And after having some experience with law and regulation and things like that, I was like, oh, getting a JD, that would be pretty cool. I could do both, have the engineering and the law. That would make me kind of more valuable to um, different people, different firms, and like a good source of information and reliability for companies and businesses that need it. Um, and then on top of this, I've genuinely considered also getting a medical degree, getting an MD and becoming a medical doctor and just having all three because fuck it, why not? Um, I feel like they all build on each other. If you have law and medicine, then it's like you're really desirable because you can play this role as an advocate for different health needs, and you have like firsthand experience with it. If you're engineering in law, then you can help enforce law that's based on engineering, like things that are physically um, impossible or physically possible, making sure that those things align. Like you don't want things in the law that are physically impossible or um, physically physically possible where they should not be possible. To give an example, it's like the specific field that I work in right now, it relates a lot to like the safety of people. And so like a good example is people who manufacture gun parts. Um, there's certain physical like requirements for the thing that shoots a gun or that shoots a bullet, I should say. A gun has to be made to a certain level of like strength and power resistance to this like explosion that's happening inside of it, all this stuff. Um, and if it's not strong enough, it doesn't work as a gun, right? At the same time, people who write laws and who want to protect people from guns, they have to be able to describe the physical principles that would be like characteristic of a gun. even if it doesn't look like a gun, it's still a gun because, or it still could be used as a gun because it meets the physical requirements. Um, just like, yeah, I can't do a backflip if I stand up and like try to do one right now, but I could learn how to do one because I meet the physical requirements, right? I so that's just a thing that you can do with law and engineering. Similar things pop up when you have engineering and medical degree. Then it's like, okay, you're not only practicing medicine, like I don't think people um, fully interpret medicine the way that it's truly practiced. There's a lot of crossover. Kind of depends what kind of engineering you do, but there's a lot of crossover in terms of like how medicine is learning the systems of the body, and engineering is more like learning the systems of reality. And our bodies exist in reality, so knowing both helps kind of understand like, okay, not only do I understand the system, but I understand what makes the system the way it is. Um, so anyway, long story short, looking at that conversation, I was like, Dad, you think I'm crazy because I feel like this is all too much kind of thing. He's like, oh no, I think you'll be successful. But, and I was like, you really, because I think I'm trying to do too much. And he's like, oh yeah, well, getting the medical degree, that's probably doing too much. Because people who go to school for that do it for like 12 years. And I was like, yeah, that's very fair. Um, I don't want to go to school for 12 years just to get this medical degree because the impact that I want to have on the world and that I really think the world needs, which I'm like really, really want to make the point of this whole video about, is like what the world needs right now. Um, because to me, it's not like a guess. It's just it's really simple, but you have to know why to see it as a simple thing. In summary, the world needs leaders who understand how countries are born, how they live, and how they've died. Right? So the reason that we need that is because a lot of our leaders in the world right now, a lot of our political leaders, now I'm not gonna say I'm an expert on every single political leader of every single country in the world, but I know specifically America and like a lot of what's going on in America is around this concept that like somehow because we're a country, we're isolated from the rest of civilization and the rest of society, which is the world human population. And the thing is, like, when you say that, most people know. Like, most people are like, well, duh, of course we're connected. Or like, they'll be like, oh, yeah, I don't really think about that often, but you're right. And so most people know this, or it's easy to understand. Um, but a lot of the practice of it, like how people actually think, oh, how does that impact my decisions? And like, that's part is not integrated. And so that's why I'm saying like leaders of countries right now need to understand how a country is born and then how it lives. And so a good example of this, and in the USA, a lot of the time we think about how we started. And I think too many times we think about redoing what the forefathers did, founding fathers. If you look at what they did, it it was really not like it wasn't. First of all, it wasn't necessarily a good thing. They were just running away from all their problems and saying, "Fuck it, I'm gonna start over here." Secondly, they had no fucking competition. Okay, there's no more land to be explored on the earth. There's no more like, oh yeah, I'm gonna reach over here and like, there was no competition. They and like now there's competition. So my point is that it's not the same. Okay, it's not to say that one was bad or like right or wrong or whatever. It's just today is different. And so a good like an analogy that I think helps this make sense is like starting a car. And I know this probably sounds wild, but when you start a car, you put the key in the port or in the keyhole, and you crank the key until the engine cranks over, cranks, and then it goes vroom, right? And now it's running. But once it does that, you don't hold the key, right? You don't re-crank the key when the engine is going. That's bad for the car. It fucks up the car. You just let the engine run. And so what I see a lot of people like they get really up in arms around like a lot of political topics nowadays, and it's like you gotta recognize that like if you try to start a revolution right now, you're just cranking the key while it's in the while the engine is running, while you're fucking with the system. And that's another thing. Like people see the system as like their enemy, um, but it's because they don't understand the system and they don't understand that playing a role in the system is actually a really good thing. Like the I think of I like to think of things in analogies a lot of the time because it just helps things make sense. And so, um, just to divert here for a moment, there's a lot of things where like I think people put too much priority and too much emphasis on like their individual freedom in the sense that people don't have a, a compassionate integrity. So like people today, for example, like America is still trying to do what's best for America, even though there are millions of other people in the world who have not a lick of the kinds of things that we have. And it's not very often that it's truly the prerogative of America. It's truly our exactly what we want to do. It's like what we want is to help you get what we have. We and it's because we don't appreciate it. Truthfully, deep down, that's what it comes down to is we don't appreciate what we have. We're trying to find better and better and better and better without truthfully understanding like how good it already is. And then we, in the same process of like trying to get better and better and better and better, we deprive other people of getting closer to what we already have because we're putting ourselves on a higher pedestal and increasing the gap. Like one of the biggest things I think uh like really helps me think, and I think people should use this more, so I'm going to talk about it. It really helps me think is thinking about like the similarities between concepts and what we see in actual reality. So like something like I just described is that we try to keep getting better and better and better and better while we just say like you down here fend for yourself, figure it out, right? And this goes right back to what I was saying about the founding fathers. They were down here, but there was nobody up there. There was no competition. So when they take the next step forward, okay, no problem. Next step forward, okay, no problem. When everybody has their spot already, and you can talk about the native populations and stuff like that too. I just want to keep that separate for the point of that I'm trying to make in this moment. I'm not saying it's something that we should neglect or ignore or forget about. It's just it's not helping to make the point that I'm trying to make right now. Everybody has their point, right? And as America pushes up higher, we're stripping resources that could be delegated to the people down here. And so as we just keep going, we're just going to keep cranking it, right? These people are not going to move, or they're just going to stay at a very slow pace catching up. And so when do we realize that it's a burden to the system as a whole, as a planet, to not help third world countries and make them a priority? When do we realize that there's this connectivity between societies, civilizations, that is not equivalent to the concept of a country? Okay? That's like my main point. That's my biggest point to be made. Today, most people think of, when you say society, our society, they think that means my country. My country. They are not the same thing. Here's why. Societies and a society itself is based on people and the values of people. Countries are based on systems and the operations of those systems. Now, the systems and the operation of those systems comes from the people and their values. That's true, right? They're related. But the point that I'm trying to make, it's kind of tucked away in there. It's not that societies and countries aren't related, but it's that societies and their values and their beliefs are what prosper, not the country. So think of it like your family versus your house. Right now, what I see is that people are more concerned about their house than they are about their family. And here's the thing. We are concerned about making our house orderly and making our house comfortable and making our house big and functional so that we can spend all of our time in our house and that we can have people to our house and we can go to other people's houses and things like that. But what happens when your family member gets sick or they have a heart attack? Are you still worried about your house? Or do they get your priority? Do they get your attention? Do we not take every means that we have to make them well again? And is it not a God given intuition that when everybody is well, the house can also be well? Is it not obvious that in order for the house to be taken care of, the people who maintain it have to be well? They have to be in good shape. They have to be sharp in their mind. They have to be able to move around and think and organize and communicate. So if I'm telling you that our family is sick, why are we still painting our shutters like some menial basic ass shit that does not matter at the end of the day? Like, you can have your same color shutters. We just changed them 3 years ago to this color or whatever timeline. I don't care. The point is that doesn't make your family safe. That doesn't make your family well. And so that's the issue that I see in society today. That's the issue that I see cropping up, is that there's this confusion between the concept of a country and society. Society is not separate. We exchange information, we exchange goods, we exchange resources, our personal time and energy to other countries every day, all the time. All the time. You're related to more people than you possibly know. There's that law of 7 degrees where you are 7 steps away from any other human on the planet. So somebody that you know, or so you're here, somebody that you know knows somebody that they know, that knows this person, that knows this person, that knows this person, and this person could be anybody on the entire planet. You're 7 steps away from knowing anybody. You're directly related to anybody by 7 steps. And we don't perceive that, right? And that's not anybody's fault. I mean, we can only, to some extent, only see what we see. hear what we hear. But that's why I'm saying this, because there is a huge gap to be filled. And the more that we have people who think of this and who act in this way into the future generations, I think the better off we'll be. And so, as one thing, as a last comment, as I'm having this discussion with my dad, which kind of argued for both of us there, everything I just said was like both sides. Um, he left the conversation saying that, mentioning that I'm a very empathetic person and that I have a lot of capacity and care and intellect and all these things for, I just have all those things, he says. And while it's true, I'm not going to say that it's not true. It's 100% true. I don't see it as a coincidence. I don't see it as a happenstance. Like, it's not just something that magically happened to me. I'm just really empathetic. Like, I make deliberate choices in my life to be empathetic and to have behaviors and think in a way that's made to help, period. My point is, like, a lot of people, when they meet me, they talk to me, they hear from me, they think, oh, well, you're an anomaly. Like, you're very special or unique in this way that you, like, conceptualize the world or that you have, like, calibrated. I completely disagree. In the sense that what I think and the way that I think and what I do to get to those answers is something that is learnable. It's not just learnable, it's like obvious. And so even though maybe it's rare, like I will say there's not very many people that I have a conversation with and they're like, "Oh yeah, I think the same thing." Like a lot of the time they're like, "Wow, that's a really good idea, but most people don't think that way." And I'm like, that's why I'm talking about it. Because it's not really that hard to think this way. I did it on accident. It's it's just like I made certain decisions. And here's another thing. The the point of what I'm saying is that if you learn these things that I'm talking about, you believe them, you understand them to the point where you know it, like as sure as gravity exists, what I'm saying is the truth. So when you know it like that, it becomes really easy to understand like what the problems are and where the solution is. And understand like how to have like how to be proud of your role and how to have confidence and self-esteem about the positions that you take. And so that's something that I fight with a bit in all honesty because so many people look at me as an anomaly. And I'm like, I'm not that weird. Like everything I say, everything I'm saying is making sense. Right? Not everything I say. Sometimes I'm off my rocker. But everything I'm saying here makes sense. So I kind of want to break that stereotype, that trend of like, oh, you think in a very empathetic way, like where you're just like more concerned with all these things that other people just aren't concerned about. And it's like, no, everybody's concerned about it. You just don't even realize that that's what your problem is. Like, think about that. Like, if you had a sliver in your toe or something, like, you just didn't know that it was a sliver. I don't know. I don't know. It's random. Like, you're going through something and it's causing you problems, but you just don't realize that there's a cause and you're looking in the wrong places or you're going through the wrong process to make it feel better. Like instead of getting tweezers and pulling it out with a magnifying glass to make sure that you get all of it, you scratch it on the carpet or like wood. Like you make it worse, or you, it maybe like feels like it relieves you for a little bit, but then it doesn't fully get rid of it. And so I feel like I'm getting a little off track. I really want to make the point that I believe in everybody to have the capacity to know what I know, because I think what I know is very simple, but it's come from a series of choices that made me realize how simple it was. So, like, something that's like should really help this stick and help this settle in is when we make decisions, a lot of the time when we don't recognize it's happening, is our subconscious mind, way in the back of our head, is watching us, right? The little voice in the back of your head is watching. It knows when you make a choice. And let's say, for example, um, you're trying to build a new habit, or you're trying to quit a certain habit. In order to do that, there's this idea I have that, you know, the more times you say yes to something, that's the exact amount of times that you say yes to something versus the amount of times that you say no to something is the percent chance, if you like roll a die and you had a percentage chance that you'll say yes the next time you have that choice to be made. That's how it works. It's like if uh if my choices are to have a beer today or not, my brain tracks that decision every time it comes up. Every time it proposes, like every time I think of, oh, maybe I should drink a beer. Every time I say yes, it goes in the yes bucket. And then every time I say no, it goes in the no bucket. And say I say yes 30 times and I say no 35 times. Then, and like you turn these into percentages. It's like almost 50-50. So every time that someone offers me a beer, it's like 50-50 that I'll say yes or no. Unless I specifically recognize that I want to change the ratio. And then I realize that when my gut says yes, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then when it says yes, I say no. And then it goes and it stacks the no pile higher and higher and higher. And so then in the future, when I've said no 70 times and I've said yes still 35 times, whatever it was, and then 70% of the time, I'm going to say no. And 30% of the time, I'll say yes. And therefore, my habits changed. It's that exact same principle. That exact same principle. But for empathy and for like thinking in a certain way, understanding in a certain way. Like, again, to talk about the concept of reflection and how things are like there's so many things in life when you start to see the similarities, it's just stupid how you can't connect the dots. Like once you've seen it, okay, I'm not calling anybody stupid because like there's a long time I didn't get it and now I get it and I'm like, holy crap, like it's so complicated but it's so simple. What I was talking about earlier when I had the example, like let's say um Sudan. So Sudan's down here, right? America's up here. And as America keeps pushing up and up and up and up, Sudan stays here, right? That gap increases. Think about this. American society, trying to separate a country from the society, but for the sake of this, American society, what we're deciding is to put America up and up and up and up and leave Sudan here. What do we also see in American society today in the economy? Oh, yeah. Here's the impoverished. Here's the ultra wealthy. The gap. It's reflected. It's not like my point is that that pattern exists everywhere. So find out, below the country line. So like, when we look at it countrywide for America, there's ultra wealthy up here. There's middle and lower class down here. Where else does that exist? Like outside of money. So I'm trying to like take out the concept of money. What else is going on where there's like this super high emphasis of this thing and a super low emphasis on this thing in your life, in your individual life? Because what I'm trying to say is that these bigger trends that we see in the world from all this data that's around us, that people love data and they want to find all this data, and like companies are obsessed with data because the more you know. But people need data. People need to understand a simple way of what that means. And all it means is that on an individual level, every person has a gap. Every person is holding something way up here, and they're not holding this thing any higher. They're pushing too much in this way, and they're not coming down to help this person and balance the system. All right? So I'm going to talk about some analogies of like how I kind of view what the United States um, of America is doing, and kind of like the illogical behavioral things that we're participating in, um, from a very, very zoomed out perspective. I don't care about politics. I'm not getting into that shit. It's way more important and way bigger than any of that. So, what America's doing, like, um, brought up, for example, my dad brought up the space race against Russia, right? It was it was just a big flex. It There was no like genuine advantage to it, except there was this concept that, well, what if there's things on the moon that could help us? And so therefore, because Russia's trying to get there, we have to get there first. Because if Russia gets there first and there's things there that would be helpful, then they're going to get it and we're not going to get it. And we had this whole ass, like, I don't even know how many years dedicated to getting humans on the moon. Okay. Again, if you don't believe that that actually occurred or whatever, that's okay. I'm just doing this for the sake of an analogy. So stick with me. Use that whether you believe it or not. Just understand it's to set up this comparison. The behavior that the United States was engaging in was one of a competitive nature, as opposed to perhaps a considerate nature. Um, it was saying me before you. To some extent, cool, good, great. But to another extent, think about it this way. So, for people who aren't familiar, there's a person who cuts down a tree for a living, who like cuts down trees, is called an arborist. And an arborist um, has a lot of responsibility in terms of doing what they do safely. Um, so, to paint a picture of what the United States did with the moon race, I'm going to use an example of the very first two people that tried to cut down a tree with an axe and a saw. in the world of cutting down trees, there are many things that can happen when you cut down the tree. The tree can fall the wrong way. Like you could want it to fall this way. I'm sure at least some of the population that's watching this video has seen a tree go the wrong way and land on a house or crush a car or whatever when somebody's trying to chop it down. And so, for the sake of this, I want to focus on this outcome that's called the barber's chair. Um, the barber's chair is what happens when a tree is cut. And there's also another one called the widowmaker. But essentially, the tree, as you cut away at it, it starts to lean this way, and it splits. So the tree, it splits in half. Some of it stays, and some of it snaps up like that. So the person who's sawing away or chopping here goes boom, dead, kills him. For real. Like, instantly. If you're lucky, maybe you're paralyzed for life. So, I'm thinking about the way that we engaged in the space race. In the same way that the first two people to ever chop down a tree engaged in chopping down the tree. Did they have any idea that the barber chair or the widowmaker was a possibility? No, not really. They knew maybe it was dangerous, but they just really wanted to do it. They just really wanted to be the first one to cut down the tree. Because, well, if there's an advantage to cutting down that tree, then like, I have to be the first one to cut down the tree because then I cut it down, so it's my tree. When you don't know the risk, when you don't know enough about what it is that you're doing and what it is that you're engaging in, it's not necessarily worthwhile to engage in it. And I think that's a lot of what America is doing today. I think that's a lot of what the larger countries in the world are doing today, the more well-established countries. They're okay accumulating risk without fully necessarily understanding what could be the consequence. And so I'm thinking about this as well in terms of like AI. Now, don't get me wrong, I use AI plenty. It's very effective for me because I use it in a way that's effective. But when you look at the impact that it's having on the psychology, the neurology of people, the operation of business, society itself, the way that we communicate and exchange information, it's kind of like a virus. And it's not necessarily good for us. And there's also not really an end in sight. There's not like oh, this is what the goal is for AI right now. It's just AI exists and use it as much as you can in all the ways that you possibly can. Which to me just seems really dangerous. Like it just seems really like, and now I'm not saying, because there's lots of rules around it, all right? There's lots of things and restrictions and things like that. But it's not fully understood what it can do to people, to society. Like I'm thinking more zoomed out. Right? Our communication habits. Do we check in on our family? That kind of thing. The simple stuff, right? Every time you add a new layer, every time you add a story to your house, you want to make sure that the foundation can hold the next level and everything that you possibly plan on stacking up there. And also that if the weather changes and the wind blows, it's not going to tear everything down. Like, it can't just balance. It's got to be fucking sturdy. And I don't think that is at the forefront of the minds that lead the country and and lead the world in general. I think a lot of them are competitive and they're winners, right? But winners also, they do some whack ass shit. Like the people who first came over, the pilgrims who first came over to the USA, which was not that then. When they first came over, so many of them died because they were just trying something new. If they were competing, can you imagine? I mean, just imagine. Not only were they trying to get over here, but all the while, there were like 5 or 10 other boats out there also trying to get to the land, and none of them wanted any of the other ones to make it. They all would have died at sea. All of them. I can almost guarantee they all would have died because they had no idea how far it was that they were trying to make it. And now we're having this occur with countries and AI and tech, all this stuff. It's like, can we just slow down and think about it first? Can we just slow down and like, we know a lot of shit. Like let's just recognize in 2026 we know a lot of shit. If we would focus and consolidate our efforts toward different tasks one at a time, like let's build a priority and like think about this and actually make it a priority. Because there's not much that humans really need, and society ends up needing a lot. Is that something that we should be doing? You know? So anyway, um, I won't ramble any further. My point in all of this isn't that there's an answer that I have to give. It's more that if we want to have an answer, like let's say an answer is the apple, like an apple is the answer. In that case, we have to plant a seed because we need the seed to grow the tree. But if we want the seed to turn into a tree, we have to have soil. We can't grow that tree on a rock. We can't grow that tree in the ocean or sand. It needs to grow in some rich, dark brown, black soil. And what I hope to have the effect of is providing nutrients to the soil so that we can, as a collective, as a society, my generation and the ones below me, because the ones above me, I don't know. You guys, I hope that you can think this way, but like for me, to me, I think my generation, the ones below us, we recognize that shit's effed up and it needs to be fixed. The ones who are above, I don't know if they really have the opportunity to look at the future as something that they're holding anymore. Like, I'm 24 years old. That means that in the really near future, my generation, all the people who were born 2001, are going to be more or less responsible for the effect of society on society itself. Like, I think everybody, as they like grow up, they kind of get that idea, right? They're like, oh, yeah, my generation's next. So that's just kind of how I'm thinking of it now. So I hope that my generation and the ones below can, and of course, the ones above, I just don't expect it from them. I don't really expect it from my generation either. I just know that those are the people I'm closest to naturally. So I'm trying to spread the nutrients into the soil so that there can be actually something when we plant a good seed, something will grow out of it. Life will come from it. And, someday we can get that apple and everybody can eat and we'll be happy. Just as an extra thing, um, talking about the tree and the life and stuff like that, um, the apple and all that, takes me back to the idea that I mentioned before that the world leaders, to come full circle, world leaders need to be the type of people that understand the birth, the life, and the death of countries. They need to understand that cycle. They need to understand how countries get started. Countries start by cranking the key, right? Totally different process than the country actually living and breathing and running the engine. Totally different. If you try to do them at the same time, it hurts the system and it kills the effectiveness of it. In addition, understanding how they die, right? How they die. It's not so that we can kill countries, but it's so that we can understand all the things that cause countries to die and then not do them. Like, literally common sense for anything. Like, all the ways that humans can die. We don't usually go and engage in those activities. So, as a country, let's also not go and engage in those activities. And then emphasizing the separation between a country and a society. So I just said, like, let's just do those things that a country, like, that doesn't kill a country, right? But instead, let's focus on the society. What doesn't kill the society? Fuck the country. The country's more or less a name. The country's just a coat that we wear. It's just an embellishment of the fundamental system, which is us, humans. Period. It's us. So the country is not what needs to prevail. It's the people. It's the society. The communication, the value of all humans. That needs to prevail. If you put the country over the people, you're putting the cart before the horse, to use a term that I just recently begun to understood. If you put the country over civilization, if you put the country over society, the global population, when I say society, I don't mean the United States of America. I mean the entirety of the human population on the earth. If you put countries' welfare over human welfare, your system will fail. Period. 100%. If you put your needs into, excuse me, if you put your wants, let's look at this literally. If you put your wants into the category and you try to fit your wants into your needs, somebody else's needs are not going to be met. They're going to be unmet. So how do we as people make sure that our needs are met and that our wants stay where they belong? As a want, something that would be nice, but that I don't need. And understand that to some people, your needs that are met are their wants. Like, think about that. So, anyway, again, I don't have the apple. I don't have the solution right now. I'm not trying to tell anybody that what you're doing is wrong. I'm just putting nutrition out there so that the earth can be healthy for the seed that grows the tree that gives us the answer. Um, it's a really, it's a long road, and I don't think it'll be solved in my lifetime, but I'll be damned if I don't try. 100%. That's all I got.